Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of our Maya to Unity tutorial. Um, Everything is as it was when we left the last tutorial, which was our walk and kick were cut. Our model was inside of Unity now, and our animations are baked in. First thing I want to kind of note is that remember last time I talked about how when we ran our walk, our root here in our preview window was not following our model, and that's going to be the first thing we're going to address. Just to demonstrate, we press play and the root doesn't follow. So to fix that, we're going to, for one, we're going to look at our walk, and our walk is something that loops. So we're going to check loop time and loop pose. We're also going to do root transformation rotation. We're going to check that one. And we're also going to do root transformation position Y bake into pose. We're not going to bake the pose for X and Z because we actually have forward movement in our model on this one, so we're going to leave that one unchecked. But for kick, we're going to leave loop time unchecked because loop is not going to kick, or kick is not going to loop, sorry. Root transformation rotation, we're going to check all of these actually for the kick. For rotation, position Y, and position XZ. Okay, we're going to hit apply on that. And thank you for your patience. This is going to take just a minute. And I don't have a pause on my video recorder, so we're just going to have to bear with us on this. I also don't have any kind of wait music, but fortunately we don't need it because it's done. Okay, so let's take a look now. Going back up, we're going to hit walk. Should that solve our problem? No, not really. But we're going to take care of that now because that's what Mechanim is for. So we're going to go straight into Mechanim. Currently we've been working in the animations area. Now we're getting to the rig. So hit the rig tab, and we're going to change our animation type from generic to humanoid. And our avatar definition we're going to use create from this model, which is good. We'll go to configure. We're going to save and apply. And our Unity is going to do its thing, and it's just going to take another minute. Again, I appreciate your guys' patience and bearing with me on this. I don't have any music to play, but fortunately Unity's done, so we can move on. Here we go. So if we look over in the top right here, we got our humanoid character, and if you see there's like little locking positions. That's for the knees, for the wrists, the elbow. And Mechanim will take a look at your rig, and it will kind of decide what it thinks should go in there. If it can't decide what it thinks should go in there, it'll turn red, in which case you'll have to delegate out what bone should go in there. And another popular question that we've been getting at the college is, does the rig actually come over with your model? And yes, it does. And this is when you get to access your rig, is when you're in Mechanim. You can see your rig over here in the hierarchy. You know, I use some naming conventions. So BN stands for bone. I have bone root, bone back, all the way down to bone shoulder. And as I click them on over here, if you look over in the humanoid, you'll see that they are highlighting as I'm going down, indicating that Mechanim has figured out where these ones should go. And that looks good. You can also click on them over on the humanoid, and it'll highlight in the hierarchy and on your model the ones that it believes should go in that position. So if there's any discrepancies on bone positions on your humanoid, you can take care of them here. So for instance, let's say that I highlighted my right knee here, but I didn't think the right knee, it picked a bone that wasn't the right knee. Let's say that's the case. You can go ahead and left click, and to fix that, drag and drop it straight onto the left knee. And that should take care of that. Everything on this rig looks like it's pretty much good. It's all green. So far it looks like all the bones are in the right position. Nothing looks out of place. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the muscles real quick. We don't need this, but because we did all of our animations in Maya. But if you want to do further animations in Unity, you can go over here, and the muscles make it to where once you have your character in T-pose, you can manipulate it with some of the standard functions they created in Mechanim. Turn left and right, in and out. These are all things that are nice, but we have our animations from Maya, so we really don't even need this. Let's go back to mapping, and we'll say we're done. And then we'll change from the rig tab back to the animations tab. Now let's take a look at walk. Let's see if we get root motion now. Sure enough, the root is following with our model as it walks forward. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so now onto the second phase of this lesson. We're going to go to Window, Animator, because we need an animator to be able to handle our different animations. And to handle our different animations, we need animation controllers. We're going to create animator controller. We're going to call this elf demo. Now, if you notice, as soon as I finish putting the name of this in here, you'll see this nice little area come up over here, and you'll see that it says any state in the middle, and then at the bottom left it says parameters, and the top says base layers and layers. Main thing we're concerned with is the animations that are going to come in here, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and the parameters. But before we get there, we're going to connect our animation controller to our elf. Since we've created our elf up here, it comes with an animator, and under animator it says controller, but nothing's been assigned to it yet. So you're going to take your elf demo controller that we just created, you're going to drag and drop it into the controller. Now our elf that's in our window here is going to be using our elf demo animation controller. Okay, so the first animation clip that we drag and drop into this animator here in the bottom left is what is going to be the default animation. Usually it's an idle, but since our only looping animation is a walk, we're going to use that one. So we're going to drag the walk in, and you'll notice the default is it'll turn orangish yellow color, and that means that is our default, what normally would be an idle. And then any animations from that will be our transition animations. And our next animation, our only other animation, is a kick. So we're going to drag and drop that in there. Okay, so there it is. Actually, let's put it up here so you can see the transitions. Okay, before we get there, let's talk about the parameters for just a second. There's float, int, bool, and trigger. Trigger is great for when you're writing code for your player controller. I'm not going to tell you how to write the code for your player controller. That's going to be up for you to learn in your desired language. But pretty much what you're going to do is you'll make a trigger parameter, and you'll have a function that says when this key is pushed that this trigger will happen, and it'll key that animation for you. So we're just going to call this one trigger, and we're going to call this trigger is kicking. Okay. Now, on default, when we press play, it will just use walk, and we'll test that real quick. We'll press play, and then we will see that our elf is walking. Oh, and I forgot to mention something. It just walked right off the screen, didn't it? Okay, well, that brings me to my next point. Under elf, under controller, we don't need to apply root motion, so let's uncheck that. That'll keep it in place. Back to our animator. Now we want to get the kick in there as well. So first, you'll right click on walk, and you'll say make transition, and then it'll give you this little arrow. And since you guys are used to Maya, you'll notice these arrows are familiar. You use these things to connect things, right? So we're going to connect the walk to the kick. Now, if you click on the arrow, you'll pull up another little area over here, and the conditions come up. You'll notice that like there's a little scrub bar, and there's a bar called walk and a bar called kick, and it's got a little blend between the two of them. Mechanim really takes care of this well. You don't really need to manipulate this very much, at least not to begin with. But the conditions, we made one called is kicking, so let's go ahead and use that. That's going to be our trigger. So when it is kicking is triggered, it'll transition from walk to kick. Now we also need to get back from kick, so we're going to do another transition called make transition from kick to walk. And if you click on that arrow, it'll say exit time, which means that as soon as the animation from kick is over, it'll just transition back into the walk. And that's actually what we want in this case. So we'll press play and see what we got here. First, I'm hoping that the model doesn't walk off the screen again. That'd be great. And just like I wanted, it is not walking off the screen. Let's go back to the animator over here. And you'll notice this little scrub bar going, and that is the animation clip for the walk cycle looping over and over again. But you'll notice there's nothing going for the kick, and that's because nothing's triggered it yet. This normally is done through code, but just to test it, you can go down here and say parameter is kicking, and then you can just check it to see if it works. And then there's the kick. There's the kick again. And if you looked at the kick in the animator, you can see that it ran its animation course just once. Because when it's triggered, it only runs it one time, and then it ends. So it is kick. Okay. And that is pretty much does it. This can get a lot more complicated. You can make animation blending trees and player controllers that handle them in many different ways. But for this lesson, I believe that should pretty much bring it to a close. We taught you guys how to get your models into Unity from Maya and how to bind your rig, how to bake your animations, how to use Mechanim. Also gave you guys a little overview of how to use the animator and animator controller. So I hope that this was very informative. I thank you for your time and patience, and hope to see you guys or hear from you guys in the future. If you have any questions, just go ahead and leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll answer them as I see them. Thank you.